time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. From downtown Main Street, Columbia, Phil Kornbluth and Will Pelagic and Brian Leonard with you. The Professor Tom Hayes remains off for this week. Good to have you with us. And I know very seldom do we go on the air on Sports Talk and understand that we're not the most important thing in your life at that particular time. However, this is one of those exceptions. We certainly understand if your attention is somewhere else with Florence floating around out there ready to attack the South Carolina coast and inward in the coming days. So understand if you are not interested really in a whole bunch of sports right now, if football is not your main focus, if you don't really care about the Tigers or the Gamecocks for the most part because you got bigger fish to fry, certainly understand. But if you do want some time away from all that, you do want to talk some sports, you do want to hear about the Gamecocks Tigers, Coastal's win today at Campbell, Newberry's game tomorrow, we are here to supply. 800-956-7266 is the number. But the Storm is playing havoc indeed with the schedule. Gamecocks are done for the week. And others are done for the week.
A lot has kind of come down here over the last 24 hours. We've had some that kind of bypassed us and happened earlier in the week. But here's the schedule, at least as far as it goes right now. As you mentioned, the Gamecocks around 4:15 today announced that they were going to cancel their game against Marshall. Ray Tanner saying in a statement, whether or not this game could have been played, we made the decision we think it's best for the state and those evacuating the coast. He also talked with athletic director Mike Hamrick as well, and he'd been in contact with the week throughout the game. And we will have Ray Tanner joining us at 6:30 here today to kind of go over that decision more here on Sports Talk. He's been gracious enough to join us, especially we know he's been a busy man over the last, again, 24 to 48 hours. He will join us here coming up here on Sports Talk to go over what went into that decision. The folks at South Carolina have at least talked about trying to put another game on the schedule, whether it happens during the October 20th bye week. There are actually a lot of choices in the October 20th bye week, or possibly sometime at the end of the regular season if they need it for either bowl eligibility or just to increase their bowl resume. Among teams that have byes that week that they could play, Miami, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, Texas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Boston College, Iowa State, Louisville, and Northern Illinois. Those are among the teams on the October 20th bye week that share an open date with South Carolina. There are other schools of SEC persuasion that are also off that week, including Georgia and Texas A&M, as well as Florida.
Play Georgia again.
Yeah, that would be a good idea, right? Clemson has announced already they will move their kickoff for their game against Georgia Southern to noon on Saturday. They're still working out the TV plans from the ESPN family of networks. I'm not saying that this game is still going to be played, but it seems to me that they feel that they're inland enough to make that happen, and also with the resources that they have, at least at their disposal, that they can make that happen. I'm not saying it's 100% that game still goes off, but who knows? They at least think that at least they can get it off at noon on Saturday, and they will at least play that game there then. Furman and Colgate, they were the latest in the state to cancel. Was to be the home opener for the 0-2 Paladins. They will not make up the game. They're looking for another opponent. They have an open date on October the 6th. Presbyterian has moved their game with Stetson to the Hatters' home in Florida. They're going to play that game at noon on Saturday. So Presbyterian, the Blue Hose, on the road there. We already told you yesterday about the Citadel and Charleston Southern postponement until November the 29th. South Carolina State has postponed its contest against North Carolina Central to November 24th. And you mentioned, of course, Newberry playing tomorrow against Virginia Lynchburg, 1 o'clock Thursday. Benedict's game against Fayetteville State has been canceled, will not be made up. And as you mentioned, Coastal Carolina, 58-21 win over the Fighting Camels of Campbell. So the move to Boys Creek does not alter the shots. Joe Moglia's squad 2-1 following Kilton Anderson's 3-touchdown performance.
Yeah, they get off to a slow start and then really started to click offensively in the second quarter. came out at halftime and just dominated the game in the second half. And the very good win for Coastal, now 2-1 after losing that opener to South Carolina. They beat a UAB team that just restarted football recently, but that was a good matchup for them. And to open the home schedule with a win was big. And then to get this win on the road, even though it's against a Big South FCS team, Coastal's not that far removed from FCS level football itself. They're still building up their scholarship level. So from that standpoint, it wasn't the mismatch that you might expect. And so that's a good win on the road for the Chants.
Looking at some of the other games that are outside of the state but are still in the path of Hurricane Florence that are updated at least from yesterday, we told you about Charlotte, the 49ers. They were supposed to play at home against Old Dominion. They have moved that game to tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. Appalachian State canceled its game against Southern Miss. They will not replay that game. They're exploring options to possibly reschedule that game. Clemson, Georgia Southern seems to be the only show in town that is still playing on Saturday, at least in the state, Corn. And you wonder, again, like I said before, whether or not that still comes to pass. So they believe that they're at least far enough away from that and also able to at least staff that with what personnel might be left over from those who are not responding on the coast. Because as you know, with these logistics, and that's part of the reason why the USC game was canceled, it's not necessarily about where the storm will be come 7:30 Saturday night, but it's about whether or not the emergency personnel that gets people in and out of the football games, staff of security, people who are trying to get there to work as far as concessions and ticket takers and people of that nature. There's all concerns about whether or not they can get there and get out, and also those who are at least called to the emergency services on the coast in order to make that happen.
Yeah, I think there's precedent for Clemson to operate under these circumstances, as we recall the Notre Dame game. So they know how to get the people in and get people served and all that kind of stuff. And I think the storm, I'm no meteorologist, but I did watch the Weather Channel last night. And, it looks like it's going to be around the Little River area. That's sort of where the landing zone is projected right now, though, of course, we know it can still move over the next couple of days, hitting in that area sometime on Friday. And then they're talking about it being like stationary and just hovering around and eventually moving inland. So as far as Clemson is concerned, they must have looked at the charts and figured out that the early part of the day on Saturday, a 12 o'clock kick, the weather might still be fair enough and there's enough time for people to arrive, take in the game, don't spend a lot of time tailgating afterwards, and leave before the bulk of the bad weather makes it to the upstate.
I'm surprised if they were thinking about moving the game before they did. I'm surprised they didn't even explore Friday, honestly. I know that it probably puts Georgia Southern in a bind, but I think it was early enough in the week where you could have thought about Friday and done something, Friday around like 3 o'clock. I know that you hate to take away a football weekend, and I know that Dabo Swinney has been very adamant in saying those 7 football Saturdays are sacred to those at Clemson, and I believe that's the case for anybody across the country. But at that point, I wonder about, people especially who are traveling. You're going to have a very diminished crowd. Because you mentioned the Notre Dame game, that was obviously a very particular anomaly in the scheduling there. This is no Notre Dame that is coming to Clemson.
Yeah, if they hadn't had that Notre Dame game, Dabo would never have been able to utter those famous words, bring your guts.
Bring your own guts.
Yeah, bring your own guts.
BYOG.
Also want to mention high school football. We got high school football games tonight because of the storm. A lot of teams have rescheduled games for tonight. So you've got Buford and Chesterfield. You've got Chester, Lancaster. You have got Lugoff, Elgin, Fort Mill. This is all according to the high school league. You've got Mid Carolina 96, Nation Ford, Indian Land, Newberry.
Go 96.
96 miles from?
Nowhere.
Remember, it's 96 miles from an Indian campsite or something
like that. Yeah.
Nation Ford and Indian Land, Newberry and Fairfield Central, North Central, Andrew Jackson. These are all for tonight. South Point and Greenville. Now, that's a shame because that's not a shame, but they're playing tonight, which is great. It's a shame it's not going to be on Friday night. South Point, of course, one of the state's best, and then Greenville with an outstanding quarterback and a very good offensive team. That could be a good ball game.
There's still people thinking about playing on Friday night because I'd find that, especially at least in the lower part of the state.
Oh, they totally wiped out.
Yeah.
Entire lower part of the state, PD, Grand Strand, Charleston area, all Hilton Head, Buford, all those games have been postponed for Friday night, and they'll see when they can reschedule. And they got to deal, of course, with the ramifications of flooding and damage to their stadiums and all of that to come.
Have a light slate for the high school school board on Friday.
But we will still have it. Be right back.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Getting a lot of questions on our Periscope at SportsTalkSC and on Twitter. Questions that, if we're being brutally honest with you, we do not have the answers to yet. But the man who might have those answers, Ray Tanner, will join us 6:30 here. Basically, they're asking about, opponents when they'll play. Are they going to play the bye week as far as, playing on the 10th? That would give them 10 consecutive weeks of games. Is Marshall still an option at the end of the regular season? That could possibly come into play. I know, at least from talking to people inside the South Carolina Athletic Department and the people who have been in dialogue with the folks at Marshall, they really wanted to come down here and play. They really did. Hamrick and Holiday, those guys, they really wanted to get this game in. Possibly because I think they thought they could possibly win. I mean, that's another part of that, at least factors into their mind of thinking. But of course, there's still a lot of people who obviously know why this was canceled, and I think they agreed it was a right call. Discretion, the greater part of valor.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Ray Tanner being an old baseball coach, and when he was coaching the Gamecocks, I mean, they would go to the extremes before canceling a baseball game at any time. They would wait things out, but totally different animal. You're talking about 80,000 people, 70,000 people, and everything else involved. We'll get some answers from him to our questions coming up here at the bottom of the hour. Also, this being Wednesday, it's M&M night. The M&M boys will be with us a little bit after 7 o'clock. Look forward to having them with us. Jake Bentley, we'll hear from the Gamecock starting quarterback, and Kelly Bryant, we'll hear from the Clemson starting quarterback, along with the Tigers, Kayvon Wallace and Christian Wilkins. We've got recruiting information for you as well here on Sports Talk.
And efforting possibly Joe Mowgli from Coastal
Well,
Carolina.
I just heard back from Coach Mowgli. He asked for tomorrow night. They're on their way to Jacksonville. They can't get back to Conway, so he said they're going to Jacksonville because it's safe, and they will assess the damage. So the Coastal Carolina football team was in Bowie's Creek, North Carolina, so they're going to head south to Jacksonville.
There's a great barbecue joint around in Jacksonville, Kinston area, but they put the vinegar sauce on the barbecue, though. That's the only thing I don't like about it.
Is there? I finished off my barbecue today, just for a little side story here.
Sure.
Finished off my barbecue that weekend.
I still have to eat that.
From Chris Fulmer.
That might be tonight.
World champion barbecuer.
Yes.
Chris Fulmer.
I'm eating that
and
tonight.
He didn't put any sauce on it. He
Right.
just gave us the smoked barbecue. But I did vinegar on it today, and it was very good.
I'm not a vinegar guy.
You know what? I'm becoming more of a vinegar guy.
I'll move to the north then. North Carolina. That's what they
Well, I
do
mean,
up
I
there.
grew up in Brooklyn, so it was only natural that I would prefer the
Brooklyn barbecue is a little different than what they do.
You
in
are
North
the barbecue in Brooklyn.
please.
All right, 800-956-7266 is the number, and just a couple of other quick notes. The Clemson-Texas A&M game, according to ESPN Public Relations, a Nielsen total live audience of 4,486,000, the most watched game of the weekend. Cable's second most watched regular season Saturday game since November of 2016.
And adding a little bit more to the release from South Carolina on the cancellation of the game, and we might even get an answer with this from Ray when he joins us at 6:30. They are going to have information about possible refunds for that game or possible ticket exchange information if they do reschedule for a home game coming up later on this year.
This note out of Georgia Tech, their starting B-back, Kervonte Benson, out for the season. Knee injury. Of course, Clemson goes to Atlanta next weekend. Big loss for Georgia Tech. All ACC selection last year after rushing for over 1,000 yards. Former Clemson receiver Martavis Bryant, one-year contract with the Oakland Raiders.
That's interesting because they thought he was going to get a possible year-long suspension for a substance abuse violation, but at least that's on the back burner, pardon the pun.
Okay, 800-956-7266. By the way, remember, if you ever lose us over the airwaves, you can catch us on Twitter with our Periscope, our live Periscope. That's Will. Right there in the middle. People always ask me when they see me on the street, Corn, why don't you sit in the middle? Because A, you're better looking, and B, you are the star.
That's not true.
I sit here because traditionally this is where I sit. The seat fits me. Plus, I get to see the clock easier when I'm sitting over here.
You can't turn your neck.
I like looking at the clock. And then I like to look at Brian, too, because Brian is a good-looking guy like me, and good-looking people like to look at each other.
There's a reason that Brian is not on screen right now.
What is that?
There's just a reason.
Yeah. We can put up a producer cam if we wanted to.
He doesn't want one.
He doesn't want one.
He doesn't want
He prefers to operate in anonymity.
Yes.
Even though you can hear him on the radio with Kev Cohen in the mornings in Columbia.
And hear him on our flagship station, Point Radio, with the weather updates during the breaks.
That's why when he gives a weather update, I know that exactly what's going to happen. No questions. Anyway, our Periscope on Twitter, a lot of people catch us that way, live and also in delay. Our station in Columbia, the Point Radio You can catch their feed on the TuneIn app. You can catch other stations on the TuneIn app, the radio.com app, but the Point Radio does not preempt us. Always a great place to get us. And, of course, our website, SportsTalkSC, you can get to the links there as well. All right, let's go to the phones, 800-956-7266. Ray Tanner coming up at the bottom of the hour. We go to David in Woodruff. David, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm doing fine. On the barbecue note, I've had barbecue from the north, south, east, and west. Best barbecue, hands down, Scott's Barbecue, Hemingway, South Carolina. Number one.
Yeah, I hear a lot about that. My brother still lives in the PD. He goes out of his way to go to Scott's Barbecue, and he says it's fantastic.
I'm ready. Bring us some.
Well, listen, you got a free weekend. Get yourself a date.
It's not free. It's going to be hunkered down, waiting for the storm.
You're not going to be locked into a game, is what I'm saying. You can hop in the car. You can run to Hemingway, get you some Scott's Barbecue.
I'll go right into where the storm is. It's not good.
I think the National Guard should be protecting Scott's Barbecue and Hemingway from any damage.
Oh, yeah.
It's a national, it's a national treasure.
How are you holding things down there in Woodruff there, David?
We're holding it down pretty good. I'm hoping for everybody's safety down in the lower part of the state, is where I'm originally from. All seriousness, I just hope that everything works its way out. No deaths. Please protect Scott's Barbecue. Another thing I'm asking. Don't damage that place. But I think you kind of answered the question that I was going to ask, Phil. If we don't catch your high school scoreboard show here in the upstate, in my neck of the woods, Spartanburg, Woodruff, and I was wanting to know, you kind of said a couple of them just now. I don't tweet or anything like that, but I will get on the internet.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what.
Yeah, go to our Columbia affiliate if you can get access to the internet. If you don't have a smartphone, use your computer and go to the Point Radio, and they air our scoreboards on Friday night. You can catch them there.
And we also have them on our website after the evening is over as well at sportstalksc.com.
Well, they're on Twitter.
Oh, also put them on our website. We put the scores on our website.
Well, we used to, but since we put them on Twitter, it's kind of redundant. It's extra work.
Is that a fact?
It's extra work.
I've seen them on our website. Have I not?
You've seen the scores?
Yes.
Yeah. The scores are on the website.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, the scores are on the website.
That's what I'm saying.
Not the voice.
He wants the scores.
Or you want the scores, you want the voice, or you want both?
Oh, both. I love the scoreboard show. So that, could I get that on the Point Radio? Or?
Yes, you can. Just hit their listen live button. Thank you very much.
The best thing is we just want to provide as much info as possible.
I'll tell you what,
and traffic to our website.
I want to thank the people who go on Twitter to watch us and listen to us, because that has really taken off and grown substantially since the start of football season. Let's go to North Charleston, and we welcome Glenn to Sports Talk. Hello, Glenn. Hope everything's well with you.
Well, I'm in one of the neighborhoods. Everything's boarded up.
You better get the heck out of Dodge. The governor said, if you ain't getting out, they're not coming to get you.
Did you not heed the governor's warning there, Glenn?
No, I ain't worried about it. I'm an old Navy guy. I'm watching it. I'm hunkered down. I'm getting ready to go have a hurricane party, baby.
You can go.
Sit back drinking margaritas. We're cool.
You can go down to Holy City Brewing there in North Charleston. Maybe they're having a hurricane party over there.
Yeah, maybe so. Probably better than one we got going, but we're doing.
Well, listen, you be safe and hope everything goes well. I guess you heard today that Apple announced they have a new watch for you. New what do they call it? An iWatch? What's it called? The Apple Watch?
Apple Watch.
Yeah, they got a new one, Glenn. So better go get one so that you can talk to us better.
Like you're a Power Ranger or something. Speaking of man with a lot of power, we're going to talk to Ray Tanner, South Carolina's Director of Athletics, on the decision to cancel the Gamecocks game against Marshall this weekend here on Sports Talk. we are very grateful, at least from the standpoint of at least the news being what it is today, to have the South Carolina Athletic Director, Ray Tanner, joining us here on Sports Talk to discuss what was, I'm sure, a very difficult decision to cancel the Gamecocks weekend contest against Marshall.
Well, this isn't his first rodeo when it comes to this kind of stuff. Ray, thank you so much for joining us, but I'm sure as a service to the people of South Carolina who listen to us, this will be very helpful. We appreciate your time. So can you kind of give us the background, how you and the folks at Marshall, and I guess ESPN's involved in this too, in the SEC, how y'all all came to the conclusion that it was just best to nix this thing for this weekend?
Well, we've been tracking this thing like everybody else, I guess, for a number of days now. And as you know, the models have been going all over the place. They became a little bit more consistent and just caused us more angst in the last 12 hours, I guess you could say. And, you know, yesterday we were a little bit more optimistic that we were going to be safe and we were going to be in an area that maybe a football game could be played. And then it changed this morning. You got North Carolina coast, South Carolina coast, and people are going to be impacted. We've got a lot of evacuees up here in Columbia. We got football fans in hotels that now that space can be released to take care of some of the evacuees that need places to go. And it was just the unpredictability of what we're dealing with. It's, you know, to think about trying to play a football game. Yeah, you take a look, you wait and see. And we felt like we had given it in plenty of time. We didn't make a decision on Monday. We did some tracking, we studied, talking to people, talking to meteorologists, trying to get a good read on it. And this afternoon, we have an emergency management team on campus, Dr. Pastides and his staff, and we just made a decision that there's too many people impacted, emergency personnel that needed to be in places of impact and not at a football game. And that being the case, it just seemed to be too much of a delicate issue to be playing football when we really can't predict what might be going on around us. So we made a decision. Marshall certainly was involved, and Mike Hamrick, the AD up there, and I've been talking for the last few days, and Commissioner Sankey over in the SEC office. So we made a decision that we're going to cancel the game, and we'll do our very best to, somewhere along the way, play a 12th game at Williams-Brice. All
right, very good. So considering the pressure on the emergency services personnel and security and everybody else, and you mentioned the evacuees coming into Columbia and needing space and maybe trying to not have the football fans invading that space, were there ever any scenarios kicked around to try and play the game earlier in the week while the weather was still decent? Was that at all discussed, or because of everything else that you mentioned, that never really came up on the table?
And playing the game early never really came up. Now, switching the game time on Saturday did come up, that we may have a window a little bit earlier in the day, but then you ask yourself, you know, if you play a noon game or a 1 o'clock game, you may be moving it up 6 or 7 hours. Is that going to get you to where you need to go? And then all of a sudden the weather deteriorates later that day or even earlier. It wasn't clear for us. We just didn't see the opportunity that we would be free and clear with the weather and the different trackings. That we didn't feel good about doing it. And so we made a decision as a staff that, as I told you, Dr. Pastides, the emergency management team, that it was in the best interest of everyone that we not play a football game.
Of course, the next logical question, Ray, is what happens to that 12th game? What is the more likely scenario? A game at the end of the regular season or a game during the bye week? And is Marshall completely out of the picture?
I wouldn't say that Marshall's completely out of the picture. I know the schedules didn't line up. I'm at the first thing Mike Hamrick and I talked about, who's the AD at Marshall, was, you're not open on the 20th, are you? And so that was, you know, we had that conversation, and that puts us in the position too. We would play like 10 straight weekends. So that Coach Muschamp was involved every step of the way. Also, between his meetings and his practice, I made sure that, you know, he was briefed and he knew what our conversations were like on campus. And so now it'll go back to, you know, we'll have those conversations with him about trying to find a team. If it can't be Marshall, when it'll be. Basically, you got 2 dates. You got the 20th or possibly December 1st. If we're not in a position to play for the SEC championship, and you won't know that for quite a while. So we'll try, like I said, we try to play 7 home games, and we'll try to play a game here at Williams-Brice, and we'll do our very best to have that become reality. But there'll be some challenges involved in that as well.
I know Northern Illinois is free on the 20th, right? Just as a suggestion.
You're the second person who told me that today.
Hey, you know what? Georgia has an open date that weekend too. If you want to get a quick rematch.
Well, I'd like rematch.
Ray Tanner is with us, the USC athletics director, talking about cancellation of the USC Marshall game. So what does the football team do now that they don't have a game this weekend? What is the plan that Muschamp has?
I can't tell you 100%, but I know that they have stayed on schedule. They've continued their practice workouts. As you know, he always works out in the mornings. So the fact that classes have been canceled, the guys didn't have to go in the afternoon, but he stayed on track this week. Now, he will – I talked to him a little while ago. He now will make an adjustment. He will – because it's like a bye week, if you will, he'll make adjustments on how he prepares for next week's game at Vandy. But he probably – I'm speculating here now. So I'm guessing that he'll give him a day or two off during this situation and then get back and start game planning for Vandy.
See where Ohio and Virginia are going to play at Vandy Saturday. Did you and Marshall, did y'all talk about, hey, let's just go find someplace else to play? Was that ever on the table?
We didn't. I think the only way that we would have done that had we known, say Sunday or Monday that hey, we're not going to be playing in Columbia, that might have been a conversation that we would have had. But up until today, even going into the 2:00 meeting when we gathered this afternoon, we thought we had an opportunity possibly to play at Williams-Brice. So had it happened a lot earlier, we might have been able to pursue an opportunity. Although moving a game, we've done that before. Even though it was one of our colleagues in LSU, it was very difficult logistically to pull that off, and that's not an easy thing to do. And but probably would have had some conversations had we known on Monday. But we anticipated with some early models whether that we could possibly play here, and then it just kind of went south on us, with the weather models that now we're getting our coast is going to be impacted, North Carolina coast is going to be impacted. There's people coming, evacuating. Our university was closed. The governor had declared a state of emergency at an early time. So there were a lot of factors that ended up putting us in a position that we didn't feel good about playing a football game.
South Carolina Athletic Director Ray Tanner joining us after the cancellation of South Carolina's game against Marshall. How much input did you get from the governor's office? And as far as just the pressure, I'm sure mounting as more and more of these cancellations came in, how much did that factor in?
Well, we didn't really have. I didn't. I can't speak for anybody else on the emergency management team. I never had any conversations with the governor's office. Trey Walker and I did exchange a text today, but it was a situation. He was monitoring the counties that he had closed, and he opened back a couple. He wasn't involved here. With me, he wasn't. So I know that he would have given us the support that we needed if he could have, but. All the emergency personnel were going to be in the areas that they needed to be, which we all agreed to that. So, but there wasn't any discussion there or a mandate from the governor's office to cancel the football game. That didn't happen.
Let me ask you about that December 1 date that you were talking about as a possibility. That's also the date of state high school football championship game. So, what would happen with that?
Well, Phil, I'm speculating in the dark here a little bit, but if I'm not mistaken, all their games are canceled, right? And that probably moves the championship. That probably moves their championship back a week. Didn't that happen a couple of years ago as well?
It did, and that happened because they got like 2 weeks behind, in some cases even 3 weeks behind. So, maybe we're looking at a similar scenario here, but let's just say they get back on schedule. Of course, I guess you get first priority to your own stadium, I would imagine.
Well, we're not going to neglect our high school football state championship. That's been, we value that. Might be a lot of football at Williams-Brice is the way to look at it. But I had not engaged in that, but I did anticipate they were going to be at least a week behind. So
all right,
we'll see where that goes, and that'll have to be.
All right, hang on 1 second. We'll come right back to you, Ray Tanner, here on Sports Talk.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
We're back on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. You had more for Ray.
Yeah, just another couple of moments with Ray Tanner, USC Athletics Director. Appreciate your time as always, and a lot of heavy stuff on your plate, I know, over the last couple of days. Your facilities, as this storm approaches, and, Columbia is going to apparently get a pretty good pop from it. I don't know what you recall from when Matthew came through, and maybe even going back to other storms, but how prepared are your outdoor facilities to weather this storm?
Well, our operations crew and event management team have been kind of batting down the hatches over at Williams-Brice this afternoon and with our other facilities. And we had very few issues previously, and you're just hoping for the best. But, that's not much you can do with Mother Nature, and there could be flooding issues. We've seen a lot of different models on how much rain we're going to get, but that seems to be more rain in this storm than previous storms. So we're just going to have to wait and see.
We heard Brian Edwards talking about this, the Conway native, and about how he was able to evacuate his family up here to Columbia. What role does your department play, and what, I guess, does the NCAA allow you to do for players, whether it's football or wherever sport, amongst your intercollegiate athletics, people who have families who are possibly needing to be displaced?
Well, as you know, in the last how many years, last few years, NCAA has deregulated a lot of the policies where you can. There is a fund that is available where you can help families that are being displaced of your athletes. In this case, our coastal families, and we're able to help them, with some housing accommodations if they move here to our area and need the assistance. We are able to do that. So there are a number of families, not just football, but other sports as well, that we can go to this SFAA fund and get some help there. So, that's a good thing that the NCAA now allows you to take care of your student athletes and their families.
Well, I know it's not your concern nor your business, but you're a little surprised that Clemson's still trying to play their game at noon on Saturday. From what you know of the weather, are they going to have a window up there to be able to get it in?
You know what? I didn't study too much the upstate area. You never can tell. I mean, the way these things move, I think that they could end up getting some rain, but they have moved their game time up, and that probably. I did speak with Dan Radakovich last night a little bit. We've known each other for many years, so I took the opportunity to have a little perspective conversation with him about what he's dealing with and what we're dealing with. And he's in a different location, and I think the distance that he is from maybe what we will encounter when the winds get a little bit higher will subside a little bit before they get to him, and maybe less rain. So you never can tell.
Mm-hmm.
But that's he may be the only game in the Carolinas for sure.
Yeah,
he is right now as far as it stands, right?
Yeah. So, but not sure what'll happen. They may get wet up there.
Well, listen, Coastal played today at Campbell, and they won, and Newberry's playing tomorrow at 1:00. So I'm going to go take that game in. You want to go watch some football? Head over to Setzler Field.
Can you pick me up? I'll go with you, and
yeah,
I'll be your guest.
I'm going to get the caddy. I'm going to get the caddy all greased up and shined up, and I'll swing by and pick you up. But I'm not paying for your ticket.
That means you pay for everything when you invite someone.
Maybe Chris Fulmer can tailgate out with us also.
Actually, it sounded like you invited yourself. Okay, so not necessarily that I invited you. It sounded like you invited yourself. So
I got to work. I'll be at work, but I hope you have a great day.
Hey, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate it. And hunker down. That's Georgia. You can't say that. Batten down the hatches, and we'll see you soon.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Talk to you.
You can't say hunker down. That's a Georgia thing. It's a Georgia Bulldog.
I'm glad that he said that Marshall isn't completely out of the question. I know we're getting a lot of people on Twitter who are saying sarcastically, go ahead and schedule that game because of the SEC championship being what it is right now in Carolina's eyes. But again, it's very interesting to see what they do. I don't know if they want to play 10 games in a row. That's tough.
Who are some of the teams on that list again that are still available?
I'll read them off again
you
here
said
with
Northern
you.
Iowa.
Northern Illinois.
Northern Illinois.
These are the FBS teams that are buys this week. They don't have some of the group of fives in there, but Miami, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, Texas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Boston College, Iowa State, Louisville, Northern Illinois.
Pretty meaty group.
I know.
Pretty meaty
group.
None
of those games, even Northern Illinois is no slouch. Now.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Pretty meaty group. Who would you choose from that group if you had to pick one? How about Notre Dame? 1 year deal with Notre Dame. Y'all come down here. We don't pay you anything.
You don't just go to the folks in DeKalb, Illinois, and expect a route. Northern Illinois.
Absolutely. Hey, same thing with Marshall.
That's the number one team in the MAC right there.
All right, to the phones again. 800-956-7266. Jim in Greenville, I think it is. Hi, Jim. Welcome to Sports Talk.
Hello, Phil.
Hey.
You apparently don't know the legend of 96 South Carolina.
Well, we do. We got a long.
No, you don't.
Oh, there's something different?
The story is that there was a Indian maiden. She was a Creek Indian. Her name was Issaquena. You've heard of Issaquena Falls.
I've seen the Issaquena Trail.
Well, Issaquena Falls is up above Walhalla. And the story is she was captured. She was a Creek Indian. She was captured by the Cherokees. And somewhere along the line, she met a white trader named Alan Francis, who was from the area of 96. He was down there that was a poet down there. And she overheard the Cherokees talking about attacking that area.
Mm-hmm.
She found a pony and rode it all the way from Issaquena Falls to 96, and all these places like 6 Mile, 12 Mile Creek, and all that are all named as the distance from Issaquena Falls. Wherever she passed that, she rode all the way to 96 to warn her lover about the Cherokees coming to attack.
Very, very similar to the Greek legend of Marathon.
Okay, I know that Greek legend.
Anyway. You know about
he went 24 miles,
26.2
miles.
Then
he had a heart attack, right?
Yeah, he was dead on the scene.
DOA. Yeah. But he got his message out, didn't he?
He did. What? You laughed at me like you didn't know what I was talking about.
Who was Marathon warning him about?
Oh,
was it
I knew you were going to ask
the Greeks and who were they fighting back then?
I think they were fighting
the Romans.
It was they were fighting the Persians.
The Persians.
490 BC.
Hey, thank you for that. That's twice now we've discussed.
Philippides was the name of the Greek soldier.
We've gotten more information on 96, and I thought, listen, all I knew about 96 previously was Coach Doolittle coaching in shorts in December when he wins state championships, and
we bring it all.
Being a man among men out there.
We bring it all, dude. We talk about football, meteorology, ancient
times. Native American heroes and things of that nature. All right, we don't have time for recruiting. I got some good stuff in recruiting. We're going to update Alex Huntley for you. Ja'Kai Moore's got some news, a little bit on Tyler Davis and some others. We'll get to that in the next hour.
I think it was worth it for the call of the year.
Yeah, that was a great call. Thank you, Jim. Listen, I love historical things about the state of South Carolina that I do not know.
I love learning more about the great state of South Carolina. Not only its legends, but its cuisine.
Does that mean that you're planning on making the great state of South Carolina your permanent home?
Yeah, I pay taxes here, do I not?
Does it mean it's permanent? Could you see yourself dying here? Do you see yourself living and dying here?
Permanent
eventually?
is a long time, Corn. It's a long time.
Yes, it is. All right,
I don't know how long you would last if I made it my permanent home, if at least it was in this seat.
I'm lasting a long time. I don't care who's sitting in that seat. I'm lasting a long time.
You sure you could take it?
Oh yeah.
I know I'm hard to take a little bit, a little rough around the edges.
No, not at all. I find you quite charming. To be quite honest with you.
Is that a fact?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
All right, it's the top of the hour break here on Sports Talk. Busy hour number 2. We kick it off with the M&M boys and recruiting and more. Be right back.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic.
Sir.
From Main Street, downtown Columbia, where all is quiet for the time being. Things will change, of course, in the hours to come. We're going to heat things up here in just a moment with the M&M boys. If you're just joining us, Ray Tanner was with us earlier talking about the cancellation of USC and Marshall and everything surrounding that and what could happen in the future, trying to fill that game.
And that is now on SportsTalkSC.com if you missed it.
Okay, also today, Coastal Carolina goes to Campbell, gets an impressive win, 51-28. Big day for Kilton Anderson, 10 of 14. 202 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also rushed for 67 yards. I like his game. I think if they keep him healthy, I think Coastal's got a chance to be much improved and get many more wins this year.
He's a dazzler.
Marcus Outlow had 63 rushing yards. Torrance Marable had 64. Coach Mogley will be with us, we hope, tomorrow night. Was hoping to get him on tonight, but he said they're traveling to Jacksonville. Of course, they can't go back to their campus, and they've got a lot on their hands trying to take care of the team and, of course, family members and all of that. So hopefully we'll grab him tomorrow night to talk about the win. I'll be at Newberry tomorrow afternoon, and so we'll have Todd Knight tomorrow night to talk about the Newberry game.
Todd Knight all night.
And, of course, this is interesting. Todd Knight will do his radio show tomorrow night after his game. That's got to be a first.
Interesting.
So these are interesting times we are in. Nothing more interesting than the M&M boys as we welcome them to Sports Talk here on this Wednesday night. One M, of course, being former Tiger Will Merritt. The other M, of course, being former Gamecock Corey Miller. Now, this could get a little brutal considering what was said last week. So, Corey, we'll let you start first so you can begin to backpedal.
I don't backpedal, son. I face things head on. You know what I'm saying? So I was definitely wrong about South Carolina and their preparation and what I thought they were going to get done. They obviously didn't play good football. So, you know, it's one of those things when you look at it, you know, you've been around the program, have been around those guys, you know, I still think, you know, this one loss don't define their season. If it's a bad loss, it looked bad. It was a national game. But when I went back and looked at it, and yesterday I actually spent a lot of time with some coaches over there, defensive coaches and offensive coaches, to find out what happened. They go back and look at simple mistakes. You can't defensively, for instance, you got to line up where you're supposed to line up. You can't be in the wrong gaps. You know, you're going to give up big runs. You can't take bad angles against a really good running back. They're fast. I mean, there's little things that are fixable based on what they were saying, what I saw on tape as well. From a defensive standpoint, was bad. And the offensive play call, I know everybody's talking about that. I mean, you got to make plays. I mean, they got to be able to run the football more effective. You can't have 54 yards against a really good football team. And so, you know, hey, I was wrong. I don't have no problem saying I was wrong, but, you know, I think they'll bounce back. And of course, this week's crazy announces the game has been canceled and they got to wait another week to play. But I think maybe this situation will be really good for them to continue to work and practice and figure things out. Will, you being an old offensive lineman, when it comes to the running game, I mean, you look at South Carolina and they only ran it 20 times for 54 yards. Now, in hindsight, they're saying, gee, we should have stuck with the running game more, should have tried to force it. I mean, how do you make a running game go against a good defense?
Well, I mean, the one thing we talked about is, you know, I did think that
hello. I think his line just dropped. We have got just the worst luck with Will's line. That was Will that dropped, right? Corey, you still with us?
I'm with you, buddy.
Yeah, he must, you know, up there in those mountains, I think the electronics is not the best.
Well,
I'll ask you the same question then.
I had a hard time hearing him.
Yeah, we got to work on that. I'll ask you that question. How do you make a running game go?
Well, listen, you know, Phil, you know, today when you look at spread offenses, they block air, they block space. You don't see a lot of man-on-man blocking anymore. You don't see a lot of different blocking schemes anymore because of how teams are running offenses. I mean, you know, you got a defensive front like Georgia that's big and physical. You got to be able to move those guys. I mean, you got to attack. You got to get your hands in the right place and leg drive, all the things that you talk about. It's basic fundamental football. And you got to just wear them down. I mean, you're not going to get 10 yards every clip, but you got to be consistent in the running game and let them know, hey, we're going to just wear you down. I look at teams like Alabama that run physical football. I mean, they just keep pounding you. And as a defensive player, I can tell you, it wears you down. When you get the fourth quarter, now you start to pop those runs. But I think the main thing is commit to it. Mm-hmm. And South Carolina came out throwing the football. And I understand the mindset there because a lot of teams figure, hey, you know what? They're going to put 8 in the box and expect us to force the run. So we're going to open up and throw the football. Well, that ended up being a drop pass, a tip ball, and the tip still happened. You got a pick six or a fumble recovery for a touchdown. You know, so now the whole air is out your sail. So you got to commit to the run and stay with it. And I think they'll get back to that. They got a good offensive line, but they got to be more physical. And sometimes you got to just do things different. You got to run counters, you know, off tackle plays, different things to try to create those run scenes. And but if you're not committed to it, and 20 times is not enough, that number needs to be doubled.
Corey, you touched on it a little briefly. Do you think that South Carolina was a tad too cute on their opening?
Yeah, I think, you know, you came out and you try to trick them and you know, throwing the football and trying to open up things, and it worked against them. Now, listen, I'm just being honest with you. I don't believe, and I'm not doing this as a homer, as a fan. South Carolina is not a 41-17 team to Georgia because I think Georgia is a good team. I honestly don't think they're great. I think they're going to still lose a couple of games. I know everybody now, because they beat South Carolina, everybody's on the high horse, but that defense is not a great defense. It's not a defense they had last year. I mean, South Carolina had their opportunities, and they just didn't max them out. There's a lot of drop balls. I mean, yeah, you know, they got a little bit cute, and I understand why they did, because Kirby's going to put 8 in the box, and it's hard to run against an 8-man front, hard to block it. So you got to be able to throw the ball and loosen up the defense. But you know, they did try to make some changes, but again, the defense took a turn for the worse, and then their whole game plan just was not good at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't take many shots deep down the field to try to loosen up that defense. Longest pass play was that late touchdown of 44 yards. Up until that moment, 18 yards was their longest. But I think you're right, and this is the thing about South Carolina's play calling and the offense. It goes back to identity, something that Chuck Reedy has harped on many years on the show and talking about them. What do they want to be as an offense? And, you know. Yeah,
and I was expecting a little faster tempo, you know what I'm saying? So I thought it was hurrying up, trying to wear down, and that really wasn't the case. I didn't see an offense that was really fast. But I think it's good, though, because, you know, we talked about this, right? We said we really don't know who South Carolina is at the Coastal Carolina game, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
We didn't know. But now I think we can kind of get a general idea of what they look like. And just, again, being around this program, they're disappointed, talking to some players, and, you know, they knew that they missed their opportunity, and they made mistakes. A lot of it on the players, some of it could be on the coaches. But they're a better football team than what we saw on Saturday. And I think, you know, and something I said to them, you know, that you can't let one game cost you 2-3 games. You got to be able to bounce back and put it behind you, and that's been their message. But I think you'll see them play better the next 2 or 3 ball games.
Did you ever have a game postponed when you were playing?
I can't remember. You know, I've been dinged in the head a few times now, but I don't remember. I don't think. I mean, I was here in 1989 in Hugo, but what month was that when that happened?
September. No,
that was
September. It was in September. Yeah.
So I don't know if we missed the game then or not, but definitely been in bad weather games. I can tell you this though, the mentality kind of stinks because coming off a loss, you want to get back on the field. You're ready to redeem yourselves, and I can tell you it's probably disappointment in the locker room that they're not playing this game, but it's definitely the right decision.
Yeah,
already Tanner in the athletic department.
All right, hang on a second, Corey, if you don't mind. We'll keep you for a couple more minutes. We're trying to reconnect with Will up there in the hills and not having any luck yet, but we'll see if we can get it done during the break. We've got Corey Miller with us here for a couple of more minutes on Sports Talk, recruiting, and more coming up. Be right back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. I don't know if you were pointing at me to take it or if you were pointing at me to
Wake
go.
up.
I'm ready.
Up.
I didn't realize what you were trying to do.
You're already in hurricane mode. You got the weekend off. You don't have to go to a football game.
This is not
You're probably going to have a party. Where are you partying? Going to have a party somewhere?
This is not an off weekend. It's just it is a hunkered down situation. We are brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Relax, Founders Federal Credit Union. It's all about you when it comes to your financial needs. Founders always thinks member and takes great pride in offering its members the most innovative products and services. Go to relaxjoinfounders.com to see if you qualify for membership. I'm not off.
All right, Corey Miller, the pastor of Payne, is still with us. Unfortunately, we are just not able to hook up with Will. We're having a hard time with the boy this year, and he's got a lot to say. I'll have to work on that during the downtime here and see if we can get that figured out for next week or maybe get him on tomorrow. But anyway, back to you, Corey, and quick thoughts on Clemson. You see anything coming out of their win at Texas A&M? I mean, it's a win on the road in the SEC in a tough environment against what appears to be an improving team. They had some issues. They had some mistakes, but they went on the road and they won again.
Well, you know, I don't know if you remember me saying it was going to be a really good football game. I thought Texas A&M would win that ball game, and honestly, they should have. You go back to a blocked field goal, a missed field goal, and that questionable call that they had down there at the end zone. So they played well enough to beat Clemson. I think, you know, on the flip, like you said, a good win. And despite struggling, they came out there with the win. That's the ultimate goal anyway. But I think things real quick, Phil. Dabo needs to start around these quarterbacks. Kelly Bryant should be the starting quarterback. Yeah, the guy's going to be phenomenal. Trevor Lawrence, you can see he has a home run. He's got a long way to go. He's not ready for the prime time. He's going to make mistakes. And I said, if they played him in that game, they would have lost.
Mm-hmm.
They had to go back to Kelly Bryant, and he had to win the ball game. He has to be real careful. From people that I talk to and know that's in that program, he's not really happy about what's going on. Yeah, he's saying the right thing. He's supposed to say the right thing. But you can see it. When you see his screen, he's not happy. You see him on the sideline, he's not happy. I don't blame him. He has zero reasons to be giving up time to Trevor Lawrence, unless it's garbage time. Mm-hmm. He's a starter. If you keep fooling with that situation, you can risk messing it up. So they need to be careful with that. The fortunate thing for them, the rest of the schedule is pretty soft, except maybe South Carolina at the end of the year. Other than that, they're going to coast through, which is kind of sad. But and then point two is a secondary, which I always thought was a question mark. So when you get a team with a good quarterback, which I said this last year, he's a team that can match them physically, and a guy that can make plays on the offense, they're going to lose. That's what happened against Alabama, and I think it's going to happen again this year. They may make it to the college football playoffs, when they play in Ohio State or Alabama or Georgia or Washington, whoever it may be. You're going to find that they're not going to match up, and that's what I see. Because one, the offense is not as great as it used to be with Deshaun Watson, and number two, they got some issues on the back end of that defense.
It's weird, Corey. I kind of echo the same sentiment from you. I don't see a team on their schedule that can give them trouble, but I do see concerns that were exposed by Texas A&M that would definitely be perilous against a legit opponent.
Totally agree, man. And, you know, man, the ACC is just so bad. I mean, Florida State losing to Sanford, they come back from behind and oh, my God.
Do you think a loss on this schedule would preclude them from making the playoff, no matter who it is?
Absolutely, because they're going to run into the same problem that Wisconsin had last year. Their strength of schedule was so bad, and they ended up losing at the wrong time. It was in the Big Ten championship to Ohio State. But that's going to happen to Clemson. If they lose any game, if Florida State ends up beating them or South Carolina, think about it. Right now, the rest of the way, right now, they don't have a ranked team on their schedule. And if they play the ACC championship game, who knows? They still may have a ranked team on their schedule. So when that committee looks at it and they harp on the strength of schedule, it's going to be pretty doggone bad. So they have zero room for error. Zero.
You see anything else around the SEC, ACC culture? How about Kentucky's win over Florida? Is that more of an indictment on Florida or an indication that Kentucky is going to be something to deal with in the East?
Kentucky's good. Kentucky has athletes. They got players. I spoke to people that know this program very, very well. They say, hey, man, they have some dudes. They got some dudes that can play. They were flat out better than Florida. Matter of fact, they were better than Florida last year. You know, they just messed up in the fourth quarter. Remember, they had a big lead. Should have won last year. But he's doing a great job down there, and I think this is a team. Carolina fans, get your popcorn ready. It's not talking up W. Kentucky is good. The quarterback's good. We know about the running back. So that's looking good for the SEC East. And then, of course, I'll be down in Oxford this weekend for Alabama and Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they look good on the offensive side, but defense, they don't have any, so it's going to be an interesting game this weekend for Alabama making that road trip. One of the games I'm still a little bit concerned because they can score so much, and Alabama still have a very young secondary that have to prove themselves as well. So we're going to see how that game shakes out.
Can I hitch a ride with you for that game against Missouri down in Tuscaloosa?
That's in Missouri?
Yeah, so it's in Tuscaloosa when Alabama plays Missouri, because I know you're catching all Christian's games this year.
Yeah, I meant to say Ole Miss. But
no, you did. You did say Ole Miss. You did say Ole Miss. You're right.
Yeah.
He's talking about a future game.
Yeah.
Oh, future game. You want to hitch a ride? Yes. I need somebody to drive, man. I've got this real nice BMW. I mean, it just almost drives itself. Just put your hand on the wheel. It needs to feel your grip. You know what I mean?
I'll chauffeur you if you take care of all the beer.
Hey, before we let you go,
yes, I got your cover, brother.
Before we let you go, put on your pastor's hat and shout out a few kind words to the people of South Carolina about this upcoming storm.
You know, man, it's, thoughts and prayers, and I'm just saying that a lot of people use that all the time, but, they probably don't even pray. But I am definitely praying that the Lord will just cover everybody, because it's going to be in harm's way. Despite whichever way it turns or where it hits, it's going to affect some people. And, people have a chance to lose lives and lose things. And I don't care about the things, but the lives is the most important. And I just say, man, just, do all the things that the meteorologists and the people are saying to do. The governor said to do the right thing, just do what they say, and then just leave it into God's hands. And, that's what I believe. At the end of the day, you just got to trust God and pray for your family and pray for each other. And, hope for the best for everybody. But, we definitely going to be by the state of South Carolina. We're a strong state. We've been through it before. In the flood, back even at Hugo, we overcome. And it's part of life. But, we just got to hang in there together and just continue to pray. Don't say it, but do it.
Yeah. Hey, have a safe trip down to Oxford. Thank you for doing double duty. We'll catch you next week.
I always love it, guys. Be safe this weekend.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's the thing he said he's doing. He's catching all the Christians' games this year just because it's his last year playing. So that's a cool thing.
All right. I wish that we got to get Will's situation sorted out.
I see something here from Todd McShay that I think you'd find funny. He has Jake Bentley ahead of Drew Lock amongst his 2019 NFL draft quarterback prospects. He has Bentley ahead of Lock, which seems nefarious.
You like that word. I think that's your favorite word.
Yeah. I don't like.
Can you spell it?
Nefarious. Nefarious.
Did you win the spelling bee when you were in grammar school?
I was a big spelling bee guy.
Yeah. Let's go to Cockett here in Columbia very quickly, and then we'll do recruiting in the next half hour. Some call him Speedy. I don't know why. His name is Cockett. Why do you have two names?
Because Speedy always has been the name ever since I left high school. And that's 35 years ago.
Were you like a speedy running back or something? What were you?
No, I just look it up. I know you're going to find a statistic online. I mean, I was a good cross-country track runner once upon a time. It's just short.
Okay.
So, yeah. So,
well, be speedy. We got about 30 seconds here before the break.
Well, I'd rather call back in because I got more to think besides 30 seconds.
Okay. Well, go ahead and start, and we'll hold you over.
Now, let me say this right here. It didn't surprise me about Georgia. I think Carolina came out there trying to act like they're too pretty, too sexy. Coming out with this, passing this football to everybody else besides their own teammates. I think they abandoned the running game, and I did not see. I want to see a little bit more of the offensive line, not only to protect Bentley, but be able to establish that running game. You're going to beat Georgia. You got the ground and pound to beat them.
All right, hang on. You bring up, and we'll discuss this with you when we come back, and we will get to recruiting and other stuff. But he brings up a good point where the Gamecocks too soft against Georgia in their play calling and in their approach.
I think they were just trying to be too cute in my mind. Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. What do you know about Georgia Southern? They got a very
triple option,
very athletic quarterback.
Triple option. Yeah, quarterback's from Newberry, a guy that Clemson recruited as an athlete.
Shai Wirtz.
Very good player coming out of Newberry. We'll get back into that in a moment. Let's wrap it up with Cockett, who's holding. All right, go ahead, Cockett. What you got?
I just kind of watch the game and just shaking my head. And it's like, what are they doing on offense? Who is calling the plays? I think, Bentley's the third season coming in. I think they put a lot of pressure on him instead of allowing our running game, starting to get a little bit more gel, a little bit more rhythm. You probably have maybe less than 25 running plays and maybe 100 passing plays. And I really think that really got our defense kind of tired, because when you keep your defense on the field, more your offense, that's going to pretty much cause someone to break down, and that's what happened to the Gamecocks. Our defense on the field too much, and that's one of the biggest problems. It's just the play caller was just too bad. The play caller didn't have no identity what we planned on doing. We didn't know if we was passing more than running less. And I think we should have did a lot more running.
Well,
that's the problem.
Their thought process, as explained after the game by Will Muschamp, was come out throwing the ball, tire out their defensive line by doing so, by making them continually pass rush, wearing them down, and then eventually, I guess, going to the running game.
Well, here's the problem with that, because the passing game, unless we're talking about, screen game and things like that, it's a low percentage play. And when you're trying to run tempo and you don't convert passes and you have drops in situations like that, then you end up giving the ball right back to the defense or putting the defense back on the field. This is the problem with running tempo. And this is something they brought up on the broadcast after after one kickoff, after the one touchdown where they were down by one touchdown, 14-7. One thing that they were talking about on the broadcast was that even though they want to run tempo and it's tantalizing to run tempo, you need to be able to get some first downs and go back to the running game, and they never did. You have to at least establish the threat of a running game. It's something they could never do last year, and it's something that really just was their downfall on Saturday.
Well, you go back and you look at the way the early part of the game unfolded. Okay, you come out throwing the football, then you have the misfortune of a tip ball being turned into a touchdown. So all of a sudden, you're down 7-0. You're thinking coming out, throwing the football, moving the football, and getting on the board first. Didn't happen. So now you start at your own 25 on possession 2. You decide, okay, let's get the running game going. So you have a gain of 5 and a loss of 2, and then an incomplete pass, and now you're punting again in a drive that lasted less than a minute. And now you give Georgia the ball, and boom, 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 they go down the field, and all of a sudden you're down 14-0. So now you really do have to go to the passing game, and they came back on their
down 14-0. That's early in the game.
Well, let me rephrase that. They went more to the passing game on the next series, and whether or not they needed to, they felt the urgency to do that, but they had success. You had a pass interference call. You had 3 completions in a row. Then you had 3 out of 4 completions. And then eventually you had the touchdown pass that Debo threw to Edwards. You're on the board. You're 14-7. You're in the ball game, and then you get the pass interception. And that place then, when Fenton intercepted the pass, you're down 14-7. You got the ball at the Georgia 33. Place is rocking. You could just feel the momentum starting to shift, and then you can't do anything. You have an incomplete pass under pressure. You have a loss of 1 by Debo. Then you have Bentley flushed out, and he gains 2. It's 4th and 9 at the Georgia 33. Now, you could have gone field goal there. It would have been 50 yards, but you got to have somebody in your field goal kicking crew that can hit a 50-yarder. That would have made it a 14-10 game. Instead, they went for it, incomplete pass.
Well, they don't feel confident with Parker White from that 40 to 50 range.
That's most unfortunate, because then Georgia went down, kicked the field goal. Okay, you're still 17-7 in the ball game at that point. And then, of course, you had the unfortunate Well, that's in the first quarter. And then in second quarter, South Carolina kind of held its own until the very end when Georgia kicked that field goal that turned everything in there. It was 17-10. They kicked the field goal. They go in 20-10, and then they just dominate them in the third quarter.
You know, my whole thing with when it comes to where South Carolina was in this football game was the play calling was very – I don't want to say it was uninspired, but it seemed very vanilla, and it seemed like, again, they were trying to play too cute. One of the things that even was being said also on the broadcast was that anytime Deebo Samuel went in motion, he got the football. And there needed to be some more motioning. There needed to be some more, I would use the term window dressing. There needed to be more opportunities for you to throw Georgia off. You were never going to be able to go and run right at Georgia, in my mind. You needed to be able to get guys the ball in space, use the screen game, use some sort of way to get guys out of the middle, because every time they tried to put that zone read up the middle, it did not work.
You know what the longest run by a running back was for the Gamecocks in the game? The longest rush by a running back?
By a running back?
Mm-hmm. Don't look it up. I'm asking. That's what I'm asking.
Is it less than 10 yards?
Yes. 9 yards was the longest run by a running back. Bentley had an 11-yard run. Tells you how stuffed they were. But then, just going back, remember they had it.
Up, but I played along.
They
sorry.
Remember the Gamecocks had it on the 6-yard line. They had it second goal at the 6 and couldn't knock it in for a touchdown. Had to settle for a field goal. That was their hope right there to turn that thing back really in their direction. All right, can I do recruiting?
Sure.
We've gotten so far behind. I want to do recruiting because people are certainly waiting on it. Are you waiting on it, people?
Are they?
I hear they're answering, yes, give us recruiting. So Hammond, of course, the home of two defensive stalwarts for 2020, Alex Huntley and Jordan Birch. Now, let me tell you, you're not going to hear us talk a lot about Jordan Birch. Well, you'll hear us talk about him, but he's not going to say anything because his family has pretty much made him off limits to recruiting interviews. They want him focusing on school and his football season, at least for now. But Alex Huntley is more than willing to talk to you about what's going on with him. And the two of them were at South Carolina Saturday. So from Huntley's standpoint, he said it was a good visit. He's been there many times, and he was focused on the defense of South Carolina, but he's also a Georgia prospect in terms of the recruiting. So he was not really focused on Georgia, but certainly keeping an eye a little bit on what they were doing. He'll focus more on Georgia when he goes there for a game. He was looking a lot at USC's defensive line. He also talked to Will Muschamp. Of course, he sees Muschamp a lot because Muschamp's son is the quarterback at Hammond, so he gets to go to all the games. And so he gets to see these guys all the time. He said the thing that's going to make the decision for him has nothing to do really with how good a team is in terms of its national ranking or all that. It's who's going to develop him for the NFL, the place where he thinks he can be developed into an NFL player the best. That will be where he goes. He is going to take other visits. He wants to get to Clemson, Georgia, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Michigan, Alabama, and others, no favorite. Offensive lineman Ja'Kai Moore of Nokesville, Virginia, had planned an unofficial to Clemson for Saturday. Not going to make it because of the storm now. He will reschedule. And it's one of several unofficials he plans in the coming weeks. Right now, he has Miami down for September 22nd, Penn State September 29th, Florida October 6th, Ohio State October 13th, USC October 27th, Virginia Tech on a date to be determined. He's already taken an official to USC. He said USC and Clemson are in touch with him practically every day. And at Clemson, they're telling him you can come in and start at left tackle right away, replacing Mitch Hyatt.
That should be a big hole they need to fill.
South Carolina is saying it's a school where he can come in and get playing time as a freshman, plus the SEC is appealing to him. So both are high up on his list. Clemson defensive line target Tyler Davis of Apopka, Florida, told the Orlando Sentinel he plans to announce his college decision around midseason. He's had a top 4 of Clemson, Florida State, Ohio State, and Miami. He went to Florida State last weekend. He told the Sentinel he is scheduled to visit Clemson this weekend, but the weather might force him to reschedule. Linebacker Tyron Hopper, Roswell, Georgia, was not able to make it to USC Saturday for the Georgia game. He's a Florida commit. He continues to communicate with USC. He will visit later in the season. Got some basketball coming up for you after the break.
The guys are always checking email. Send your comments or questions to talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, more of Sports Talk from Columbia's Main Street.
We'll get into more of the only game in town this weekend, Clemson and Georgia Southern. The Eagles coming to town. Again, that game has been moved from 3:30 until noon. No TV information yet from Clemson's perspective yet. The folks at ESPN are trying to get that at least straightened out from their perspective there. So once we have the information, we'll pass it along to you on SportsTalkSC.com and on our Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Again, the Gamecocks canceled against Marshall. Corn has some more basketball recruiting.
And that would be the ESPN dysfunctional family of networks, right? So you know?
You have some.
Who's dating who? Who's cheating on who? Who's been arrested?
You know, they've actually been.
Who's got all kind of little
ever since their
infidelity charges against them.
Ever since their new president came on, he's actually kind of straightened things out over there.
Cleaned them up a little bit?
Yeah.
That's great. That's just great. Let's wrap up the recruiting report for tonight. I promised you basketball. I deliver. USC offered 6'8" Chandler Lawson, Oak Hill Prep, native of Memphis. Georgia Tech, Kansas, Florida, Ole Miss, Memphis, and others are offers for him. 6'4" Alex Hemingway of Newburgh, Indiana, Clemson target, went to Bradley last weekend. He said Clemson and DePaul are scheduled to watch him in open gym next week. Took an official to Bradley last weekend, as I said. 2020 6'8" PJ Hall of Dorman will visit Clemson Saturday. He and his teammate Miles Tate were at Clemson Saturday. I think I've mentioned that before.
Yes.
Shooting guard Josh Corbin of Ohio committed to Winthrop. Clemson is one of the final 8 with 6'1" Alamir Dawes, Newark, New Jersey, UConn, Seton Hall, LaSalle, Wichita State, TCU, St. John's, and Providence, the others. 6'7" Christian Brown, formerly of Lower Richland, but now living in the Atlanta area, waiting to finalize plans on his new school, maybe by this weekend, had an in-home visit yesterday with the entire Georgia coaching staff. He's planning an unofficial Georgia September 29th, an official during the season. He said Tom Crean has made him a priority target and is showing a lot of interest. He had planned to visit Maryland unofficial this weekend, but the Storm has nixed that. Nothing new from Clemson with him. Baseball America released its recruiting rankings for the let's see, this would be the incoming class, I guess. Yeah, the class that's in school now, the 2018 class for the 2019 season. Clemson is number 9. USC is number 21. LSU, Vanderbilt, Florida State, Louisville, and Florida are your top 5. And there you go with recruiting. And we, of course, invite you to check out our recruiting regularly on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. On Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting to take you right to our stuff. And also, we don't mind reporting on what others are saying and retweeting what others are saying. It's all part of covering recruiting in this age.
Even if it's on a paywall.
Paywall, schmaywall. Don't care. If it's news, it's for you.
Dabo Swinney literally just got off the practice field.
Literally?
Literally just now.
Like 10 seconds ago?
10 seconds ago, just got off the practice field.
Was he sweating?
I would love to bring you what we have. Although we don't know if we can get it turned around unless we want to play it right off the
let's play it right off.
Right off the source.
Right off. Can we do that?
We can probably do that.
Well, why don't you work on that? And in the meantime, I will tell you that we've got high school football going on tonight. A reminder that a number of games have been rescheduled for tonight. Others will be played on Thursday night as they try to beat the Storm. Not sure about Friday night if there's any part of the state that's going to be clear enough to get high school football games in. I will tell you that we are planning on our high school football scoreboard show per usual on Friday night. And so we just have to regurgitate the scores from Wednesday and Thursday to fill them up. We'll do that. So make plans to check that out at 10 o'clock, 10:30, and 11 o'clock here on South Carolina Radio Network. Checking now to see if we have any scores from the games being played this evening. And we do have a few. Let's see. Fort Mill and Lugoff Elgin. They're scoreless. North Central is leading Andrew Jackson 13-7. Let's see. And that's all I got.
You got one score.
That's it. That's all I got. I'm looking at the score stream, so that's all I got.
Yeah, South Carolina again, and Marshall postponed, or at least canceled, maybe postponed.
Yeah,
Clemson
definitely postponed.
Clemson and Georgia Southern will play at noon. Looking at least that game, Georgia Southern, obviously, the first 2 weeks of the season, played South Carolina State and UMass as they get ready. Here's a little bit of what Dabo Swinney had to say off of the practice field earlier today.
It's like it just flying by. But I thought today was one of our better Wednesdays. A lot of energy out there today. A lot of energy. Guys were really focused and really spirited. A lot of good on good competition. Really fun 2-minute drill at the end. But just trying to get better. And I think we've done that this week, and hopefully that'll show when we play.
Noon kickoff. I guess you like that now. Get to watch some games at night.
Hey man, listen. As I told y'all the other day, I just tell me when to play. My job is to get the team ready. Everybody else's job is to tell me when to show up. So we'll play whenever. We can play, but maybe not tonight, but tomorrow if we need to. We'll play whenever we need to. My job is just to be ready. So I mean it's a lot going on, obviously, and this is just a monster storm, and who knows what can happen. I mean, who knows? But I think you just got to rely on the folks that it's what they do. Their expertise, and I'm still praying that somehow, some way, the good Lord will just go and calm this thing down. And but hopefully everybody is preparing and getting out of harm's way. Stuff can be replaced, things can be rebuilt, but lives are precious, and so hopefully everybody's had plenty of time to prepare.
How's it been trying to keep all of that outside noise away? Is it easy to do over here in this facility?
Yeah, I mean, we're just kind of in our own world over here, and we're not on the coast, so a little different for us. We do have 6 or 7 guys whose families have been making arrangements to get out and get here and all that type of stuff, and putting a plan in place. So that's been it. But we've actually had. I mean, it's been a great week of practice, and our guys do a good job of when we cross the lines, having football focus. So this has been a week where there's a lot going on, but they've been really locked in at practice.
That's Dabo Swinney, a little bit from earlier here on practice. And thanks again to the folks at TigerNet for bringing that to us. And, it seems that they've at least, for the most part, tried to keep themselves at least on task. They're playing a team in Georgia Southern who was 2-10 a year ago. Let's put that in mind. So it's not like they're bringing in like we referenced the Notre Dame game. It's not like they're playing Notre Dame this week. Of course, they have to at least put their attention towards it, but obviously it's easy when there are other things on the mind to possibly be distracted by what else is happening in our state. Yeah,
Chad Lunsford has taken over that program. He did so in November of last year. I think he took over that team on an interim basis in October. He was promoted from assistant head coach to interim head coach, then became the full-time head coach. And he was born in Anderson, so he's got South Carolina ties, though his hometown is Elberton, Georgia, just across the state line.
You won't hold that against him.
No. And, Georgia Southern is a team that has won a Sun Belt championship. They're only a few years into their status as an FBS program, and already they've got a league championship behind them, 6 national championships at the FCS level. Dangerous team in that they run the option. They've run it for years, no matter who the head coach was, from Irk Russell, who started the program, now to this current coaching staff. They still do a lot of the things that they have done for decades there, and since they restarted the program in 1981, and they do it well. So, I mean, this will be a bit of a test. It'll also be a good test to get Clemson ready for another triple option in Georgia Tech.
The double-edged sword of that is that Clemson will have 3 of its 4 first games on film for Georgia Tech going up against option offenses. So a little bit extra for Georgia Tech to use.
If anybody knows how to stop Georgia Tech, is Brent Venables. All right, everybody, have a great night. We'll do it again tomorrow night here on Sports Talk. Thank you, Will.
See ya.
Thank you, Brian. See you tomorrow night right here, Sports Talk.